Hello.
All good. Yeah.
Okay. Hello. Welcome, audience. Let us get started. Good morning to everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I am really looking forward to this discussion because zero trust is one of those topics that's everywhere right now, but not always clearly understood, especially in the context of municipalities. I'm delighted that I'm joined here by my colleague Subin, a cybersecurity expert. As we walk through the zero trust and what this really means, we'll cover common misconceptions, a practical analogy, and share best practices. There's a lot to cover. So let's start with quick introductions. My name is Avisha Gadisi. I have been with CGI for 25 plus years. Started my career as a software developer and advanced into complex multi-technology transformation initiatives, program management, and digital transformation. I am very excited to be here. Subin, I'll pass it on to you for introduction.
Thank you, Avisha. Good morning, everyone. My name is Subin Alexander, Director Consulting Delivery at CGI. I've been in the cybersecurity industry for now more than 2 decades. Have worked in different countries in the cybersecurity space, always been in cybersecurity. And in CGI, I lead the cyber practice, serving customers across Canada, and have been in CGI for now for more than 5 years. Pass it back to you, Avisha.
Excellent. So Sabine, let's set the stage to start us off. How do you see the current cybersecurity landscape for municipalities? Are traditional models still effective? Please share your thoughts with the audience.
Yeah, so the traditional model of cybersecurity, where the perimeter was the edge, there is no defined edge in today's world, right? So things have drastically changed. The blast surface or the attack surface has continuously been changing. In municipality sector, we see a large increase in ransomware kind of attacks. It's not because municipalities are weak. It is predominantly because municipalities are critical today, and attackers find it a lucrative avenue for them to start looking at these spaces. So the predominant impact or the aspect of the traditional castle and moat architecture no longer applies. It's identities, which is the new perimeter, and in today's world, attackers don't breach in; they just log into customers' environment. So the traditional security fundamentals no longer apply, and it has to be a full-blown zero trust architecture that will help customers evade or avoid a lot of the impacts that these attackers bring in.
Okay, so that's exactly why we are hearing so much of zero trust right now. We also, to an extension for zero trust, we also hear never trust, always verify. What does this really mean? And if you can further explore this concept into implicit trust for our audience.
Yeah, so implicit trust is one of the largest vulnerabilities that organizations have today, whether they realize it or not. But never trust, always verify. It means at every layer, not only user information. It even looks at the locations where the traffic is coming in from, the devices that are brought in, the data that is coming. So all signals are continuously verified to ensure that it is compliant with the organizational mandates, the regulations, the policies that are set in, and ensure whatever is coming into the organization is legitimate, what it is supposed to be, basically, right? Rather than allowing anyone in. If you are late in verifying, that means you're already done because the attacker would already be in. And in today's world, it's impersonation, right? It's not, you don't even need a payload to cause an attack. You impersonate as a user. So always it is important to verify, validate who is coming in, what is coming in, where is the information coming in, the devices coming into the environment, the data. And in a modern AI world, it has become much more important to validate the agents that you're using. Are they relevant? The agentic information, because you're giving agency for agents to act on your behalf. So are they working in the desired fashion? Are they gone rogue? Right. So those are the kind of validation, the continuous validation that has to happen.
Okay, this is great. So if we explore that and unpack a little bit for municipalities from a risk perspective, what are the expected outcomes or what problem zero trust will actually solve?
Yeah, from an outcomes perspective, you lower the impact of critical assets or exposure of critical assets. You reduce the lateral movement. If you have zero trust properly implemented through proper zoning, micro segmentation, macro segmentation, so you avoid exposure of your critical infrastructure, critical assets back to the attackers. The overall impact that an attack can have within your organization is minimized. As I mentioned earlier, it's impersonation, account takeovers, those kind of critical attack vectors can be reduced by continuous authentication and authorization principles, continuous validation that you implement within your environment. The exfiltration of data, that is important for attackers today, right? So the data is exfiltrated and sold out in the dark web. So that itself can be avoided by to a large extent, right? And reduce the overall risk of escalation of privileges. Once, even if an attacker gets in, how can they conduct a privilege escalation and use that to laterally move within your environment and cause further havoc? So net to net, the impact of an attack itself can be reduced significantly if you have zero trust implemented thoroughly. At last but not least, the operational efficiencies that you can expect by having a thorough zero trust implementation is significant. Yeah.
That's great. So we talked about zero trust and expected outcome. An extension to this is in Ontario there are small, medium, large municipalities. There are rural municipalities, and they have their own unique challenges with budgets and having the right staff. So sometimes I have seen this perception that zero trust means something very large and everything needs to be replaced or broken down and built back. Is that the right way of seeing this, and what concerns around user experience do we need to take into account?
Yeah, that's a very important point, Avisha. There is a lot of misunderstandings, myths, and misconceptions around zero trust. In my conversations with CISOs of organizations, what I've heard and what technology vendors have presented to them, the misunderstanding is it's a single product. It's not a single product or technology. It's a strategic model. There are misconceptions around if it will replace all of my existing security technologies and tools. Um, well, not really. It will integrate with your existing security technologies and tools, and it's a robust principle the way you implement it, following a industry framework. There are certain instances that it's not for municipalities. We are very small. It's only applicable for large enterprises. Well, that's not the case. Zero trust is a scalable model. You can implement it if it is done correctly within any organization, and municipalities are no exception. It's very important when we talk about operational experience. Disruption, implementing a zero trust will disrupt worker productivity. Well, any technology or tool, if you don't implement it correctly, it can have adverse impact in operations, and zero trust is no exception to it. So if you implement it correctly, it will facilitate secure and frictionless access and day-to-day smooth operations for any organization. And from a municipality standpoint, it would definitely help with end users being able to securely work and reduce attack forms like ransomwares in today's world.
Right. So, again, for the next part of this discussion, I think for a zero trust ecosystem, and identity is the base, right? That is where, would you say that identity has become the primary attack surface? And is there a real life example you can connect and explain to the audience further?
Yeah, sure. So if you look back before 2020, before the post COVID era, uh, the traditional perimeter, the edge that an organization had, that used to be the perimeter. But once people started moving or working in a hybrid setup, working from home, the attackers never needed a payload to cause an impact. In 2021, 82% of the attacks in Canada was identity based. So there was a shift towards identity as the perimeter. The edge that was there no longer existed anymore, right? So there was a fundamental shift, as a result of which more and more focus started falling into the identity space. How do we secure our end users? How do we secure our executives? So that became the most important area that organizations and even municipalities today are focusing on, to see how we secure our end users, our identities more, so that they don't fall prey. And phishing attacks, as all of us know, is a mechanism that have been used by attackers to lure users in and try to take over their credentials and then cause an impact within organizations. So technically, identities are the attack or the external perimeter today from an organizational standpoint.
And to move this conversation further, I know you have a great analogy to make this more relatable. So let's continue with that.
Yeah, from an example standpoint, let's talk about the airport security model. The pre 9/11 era, when people used to travel across the airports, there were not much of checkpoints that they had to pass through. But post the 9/11 era, there has been significant changes, and that is what I want to correlate against the zero trust model. uh, as you see in today's world, you have to present your passport, your driver's license at multiple locations. Even to get a boarding pass, you have to present your ID. Once you get your boarding pass, you have to present your boarding pass at the check-in, at the security gates, and even before boarding an aircraft. So this is done in order to ensure that you are the right person, you're authorized to on board this flight and get ready for your destination. So that checks are happening at the airport. So that's the very first identity check that's happening at an airport, Avisha.
So when we correlate to, the passport checks within systems, then you're saying trust isn't just granted once, and it needs to be verified, and then municipalities also need to take this into account, as there are employee accesses, citizen accesses to various applications. Let's take it one step further, starting with the identity. Same as people traveling through airports, are most municipalities and organizations enforcing strong authentication, similar to how we show passport and we enter various gates?
Absolutely. So the authentication, when we correlate it against an IT ecosystem, the authentication, authorization, and accounting, all of those are followed in municipalities and every other organization, the same way the airport analogy that we just spoke about, right? So any user coming into the organization, his role and his access is validated. The permission levels and the entitlement that he has to perform his day-to-day duty, those are continuously validated. Is he the right person to access a resource within the organization? Is this even allowed for him? If not, that is automatically taken care of, right? So that level of policies and principles are being followed in municipalities today at an aggressive level, as I mentioned, from an authentication and authorization perspective, so that there is nobody else impersonating that particular end user who is required to do a day-to-day work within a municipality and serve the citizens of the municipality. Yeah. With that, I will move to the next stage within an airport where we look at it from the next pillar of zero trust around device compliance. So when we start for an airport journey, we have our carry-on and check-in luggages. So these undergo checks, though. So the airport authority and the airlines have different sets of policies against which your baggages are checked to understand they're compliant with the regulations. You're not carrying anything that could be hazardous for the journey. Your bags are compliant with the dimensions. So all of this are checked to understand if the person is a risk to the airport or the airline, and the luggages meets the device compliance or not holding anything which may be harmful to the airport as well as for the airline industry in itself. So this level of security checks even happen in our IT environment today from a device compliance check. So that's a very good correlation, basically.
For sure, I like the visual about the luggages, and these days municipalities, organizations have multiple devices, right? There may be IoT devices, there may be phones, iPads, laptops. So what you're saying is organizations need to secure the IT asset structure and not just focus on certain key assets.
Absolutely. The device compliance is of utmost importance today because you have critical information data that you transact on a day-to-day basis. Even in municipalities, you have partners, you have vendors who come in, and their access also needs to be monitored. The devices should be compliant even before they are granted access, and to what level they are coming into the environment. And citizens, when they have multiple devices that they bring in, let it be their phones, their laptops, or usages of desktops, any of tablets, any of these devices have to have compliance against their bring your own device policies or mobile device management policies that are being implemented within municipalities. So all of these recurrent checks that happens ensures that they are compliant from an operating system standpoint. Any of the signature fundamentals that they are and the applications, the vulnerabilities that needs to be remediated before they come into the organization. So all of these different levels of device checks ensures that municipalities operate in a secure manner and are not impacting their citizens as part of their day-to-day operations. So with that,
So with
I yeah, go ahead.
no,
So
please
with
go
that,
ahead.
I move to the fundamental around least privileges. At an airport, this is again an analogy where you are restricted access only to the areas that you need to. As part of your journey, you can only access the respective gates as part of your boarding pass that you hold. You can only go to the respective gates. You cannot move into, if you're traveling within Canada, it should be in the domestic gates, not anything related to US Customs and Border Protection. You will not be allowed accesses there. The lounges that you have access, your credentials that you hold, your boarding passes are validated there to ensure that you can reach those lounges, or you are allowed admissibility into those lounges. Similarly, for the respective airlines with the same boarding pass and your ID that you carry, you can only board the destination airlines that you're supposed to board into, or not anything and everything there. Same way, you cannot access any of the restricted areas within the airport. So this is the similar principle that is followed in the IT ecosystem around the principle of least privilege, where an end user is only allowed to access resources which are deemed necessary and based on the entitlement and permissions that they have.
So then, the concept of least privilege in relation to the identity, how widely is it implemented, and what kind of work is needed for this to be set up?
Yeah, so this is mostly in municipalities. I've seen this is mostly done as part of the identity and access management program. The principle of least privileges is adopted as part of the onboarding, the role mining principles that they adopt mostly. So anyone who has an access to a resource, he should only have the necessary privileges to do his day-to-day activities, nothing more, nothing less. So that governance is in place in municipalities today to ensure that they only have limited access to perform their duties. Anything more than that, that means you're giving them additional privileges or permissions that can get exploited. In case of a situation, if the user gets compromised, the attacker from the external world should not have any privileges to laterally move or access additional resources. So that governance is in place in itself to only avoid or require the limited privileges that they need to do their day-to-day work. With that, I will move to the next example around segmentation. Even at the airports, you would see at the boarding pass section, you would have ropes. At the baggage section, you have again coverages where you can only move in those lines. There are respective doors that you can have access to or pathways. So this is a principle which allows you to access respective scanning rooms, departure lounges, or at the security gate or while boarding at the airport. So these are the segmentation principles which are also followed at the airport, and something similar that's followed within even the IT ecosystem today, so that you have set the right set of guardrails for accessing specific VLANs within an organization, not being able to access zones which you are not even permitted to within an IT ecosystem. So it's a similar principle of segmentation that's followed at the airport, which is also implemented today in the IT ecosystem.
So you would say that having segmentation in place would limit any impact if a breach occurs, right? It can be
Absolutely.
sustained.
Absolutely, Avisha. So the lateral movement, the fundamental that we spoke about earlier, where an attacker comes in and he's able to laterally move within the environment, that damage can be very much avoided. Where you have users having limited ability to move for the work that they need to perform within their organization and not access anything and everything, right? So the boundaries, if they are set correctly from a macro segmentation and micro segmentation within an organization, that limits accessibility and lateral movement from an attacker standpoint. With that, let me move ahead into continuous monitoring at the airport. So, at the airports, you have CCTV cameras at various instances. There is patrol from the various entities, the Customs and Border Security Forces in Canada and US Customs and Border Security. So there is patrolling, there is security personnel monitoring things on a constant basis, monitoring passenger behavior, the airport staff, the flight crew behaviors. Those are all getting monitored even after boarding the flights. All of this is being monitored on a continuous basis to find any anomalous behavior. And this is very much related to what we do in our IT ecosystem today. All key core crown jewels within our IT ecosystem is getting monitored from a security operations center perspective, from a 24 bar 7 bar 365 perspective. So very much similar fundamental principles are followed at both places.
And throughout this process, as organizations continuously monitor activity after access is granted, is there any reporting or a follow up structure in place, or they should have it in place?
100%. The whole principle of day-to-day IT security operations, even after monitoring the alerts that the security teams go through, the incidents that they resolve, all of those come in as part of their KPIs and report back to the security teams on what they found, what is currently prevalent. Is there anything that is alarming? Any risky user behavior? All of those are getting monitored and reported back to their respective security teams within organizations, and same happens within municipalities as well. And also, I want to cover around the session limits, right? So, the kind of tickets that you hold, the passport, all of these are privileges that allow you to board the flight for that particular day. You cannot use it beyond that specific time, or for the next days to access the airport or the airline. So, you have a specific session within an airport, and that is predominantly similar to what happens when you're accessing an application within an IT ecosystem. You have a session limit after which you are asked to even authenticate and authorize back into that specific applications to access specific resources. So that session limit applies at both the airports as well as the IT ecosystem today. In this overall analogy, I just want to quickly compare what we just spoke about, the airport security and zero trust. We spoke about the identity checks, the validation at the checkpoint. So at an airport level, you look at it from a boarding pass or a passport or a driving license that you show from an identity standpoint, from a zero trust perspective on an IT ecosystem or a municipality. You look at it from a multi-factor authentication or your identities that you use to log into your system. Devices safety, scanning of bags we used as an example. Similarly, device compliance checks in municipalities and IT infrastructure. Access to specific resources are controlled by boarding pass access. On in an IT environment, it's done through least privileges. And from sensitive areas, you're looking at restrictive zones at an airport, and the same principle applies in an IT/OT ecosystem from a macro segmentation perspective. Watching of anomalies or continuous monitoring is done through CCTV or patrols within an airport. We use security operations and 24/7 by 365 continuous monitoring in an IT/OT ecosystem. And access, which is time bound, is predominantly controlled at an airport through boarding pass and its respective expiry dates. Session limits control all of this from an IT perspective. So that's where I wanted to draw a real time example that we use on a day-to-day basis and correlate it back to the zero trust fundamentals that we can leverage within a municipality or within an IT infrastructure.
So that's a great analogy and comparison, Subin. Um, One of the most defining moments of travel was 9/11, after which assumed trust was no longer there and lots have changed. So, do you think municipalities currently are working with assumed trust, or they have built those next steps towards zero trust?
So there are municipalities and organizations have started moving towards the zero trust principle and making the segue, but I wouldn't say that it's fully implemented everywhere. It's a continuous process. It's not like you set it and forget it. So there is constant effort being made to move in this direction, and effort is in place at municipality level to uh, improve their overall security estate from a zero trust standpoint. So let it be from a end user education standpoint or implementing continuous monitoring, implementing an identity program, zero trust network access. All of those are currently in play as part of the respective projects that are getting implemented at municipalities today.
Okay, so we have learned about zero trust and have had a great analogy to compare. Let's dig deeper a little bit, Subin, and you can share with the audience about zero trust security models, industry best practices, evolution of zero trust.
Yeah, so the evolution from an evolution story, this is not something that is new. So this has been in place for long. The eroding network boundaries was something that started way back in 2004 under the Jericho's model, and then Foresters in 2010 addressed or introduced zero trust, emphasizing on never trust, always verify principle that was coined in 2010. From 2014 to 2018, there was a lot of cloud adoption. You would have seen an increase in more and more cloud adoption, mobile workforces, bring your own device principles. And just around the COVID period is when National Institute of Standards and Technologies, NIST, started framing the formalized zero trust principles, brought in the NIST 800-207 special publication. And in today's world, this has been adopted as a strategic imperative for improving the holistic global security. The two key standards that I want to quickly pull in some insights on are NIST 800-207, which is a zero trust architecture, and the CISA zero trust maturity model. So NIST 800-207 is predominantly used from an implementation standpoint, developing the architecture and principles, uh, understanding the technical components, adopting the workflows, and designing and implementing the solution in itself. The CISA zero trust maturity model, it's a roadmap where you start looking at the holistic maturity wherever this implementation has happened, look at the guiding principles, provide maturity ratings, understand where the organization's current state is against the desired state that they need to be, and develop a 24 to 36 month strategic roadmap where CISOs work with the board of directors to understand the budgets and see how they can carve their strategic roadmap. So that maturity model definitely is a feeder or an information that they leverage on, basically. Yeah.
So once organizations understand the frameworks and maturity model, is it the first step and assessment or internal retrospective to understand where do they stand within the CISA maturity levels?
Yeah, so the maturity model starts with the assessment where you assess, interview, or conduct workshops within the organization to understand where they are today, what are the gaps, and how they can move up the ladder. So as you see here in this diagram, there are four different stages. So in which layer the organization currently sits? Is it an initial, advanced, or an optimal state, or is it still in the traditional perimeter model? So that level of assessment happens to determine the holistic maturity. Then there are scales, 0 to 4 scales on which this is measured on to identify their current state and the desired state. So that's the desired state is their final state that the organization needs to be in. And then there is a continuous, as I mentioned, this is a continuous program. So in the next 12 to 18 months, once you have projects already running within the organization, you do a reassessment to see how much have you shifted your overall post, have you reached your desired state, or what is required to move in there, and has things changed from an organizational standpoint. So that level of assessment has to happen.
Um, so where do you think municipalities typically fall in this maturity curve?
Most of the conversations and assessments that we've done, most of the organizations are between initial and advanced state. Very little are in the optimal state today. So it's between the initial and advanced state. Most of the municipalities are currently, and there are some making advancements between advanced and the optimal stage here, as you see in the maturity model level.
Okay. So now that we know the frameworks and then the next steps, what are the biggest barriers to adopting zero trust today?
There are quite a few, Avisha. To start off with is legacy systems, legacy ecosystems, applications. These are one of the key barriers that is slowing down the progress in municipalities and organizations. Not non-presence of skilled security resources, and this is a global issue, the shortage of security resources. That is one of the key issues, and finally, budgets, availability of budgets to implement any of these services. That's been a predominant problem for executives, and buy-in from the board of directors. Right. So these are some of the key barriers that I've seen or understood as part of my conversations with the executives at municipalities and IT infrastructures. Yeah.
So generally, overall cybersecurity landscape has multiple, software. It's not just one product or one software and done. Um, how do you think in that case MSSPs can contribute in a managed service centralized fashion for municipalities to address this?
Yeah. So the one of the barriers that I spoke about is a shortage of skill sets and shortage of security resources. So MSSPs can definitely address that through the skill sets that they have, the shared services model that they adopt, or the consortium models that they build for municipalities or other sectors. They bring in industry insights by serving other customers. They get the industry insights or best practices that they can bring forward to municipalities, help them fasten the security focus where municipalities can focus on other areas. The 24 bar 7 bar 365 monitoring, or adoption of all of the key security principles, the strategy construction, developing the roadmap, implementation, running the projects. All of those are something that can be definitely leveraged from an MSSP standpoint, because they bring in the right resources, right skill set, also the partner or the vendor ecosystem that they have. All of that can be leveraged by municipalities effectively. They need not go in search of technologies. They need not go in search of vendors. All the industry best practices, regulations, the analyst relations and information, all of those can be definitely brought by MSSPs, which will help fasten some of the approaches that the municipalities need to move in this direction, basically.
And tell us a little bit more about your experience at CGI. You have been working with other clients. What is the zero trust journey you have followed for cyber services?
Yeah. From CGI standpoint, we've broken it into four pillars, as you see here, right? So we start at the bare minimal level of starting an assessment and doing a baseline assessment for organizations. We identify their current gap, understand their holistic maturity state, follow industry frameworks for doing that. And then, as the next phase, we help with the strategizing and planning by developing the roadmap for the organization, understanding the current ecosystem that the customer has already invested in and what can be leveraged there, and developing and bringing in technology vendors or product vendors or solutions, helping with policies and principles if they are not there. So getting all of those ready, and then finally, the third phase with architecting, designing, and implementing some of the zero trust principles as part of the overall deployment phase, and then operationalizing and optimizing the day-to-day operations. And this is a continuous process. As I said initially, you don't leave it there, run it from a day-to-day perspective, and then better it as part of day-to-day operations by managing it effectively for organizations.
So, practically speaking, we learned about zero trust, the frameworks, the analogy. Now, what is your suggestion for our municipal audience? What's that next step they can take tomorrow in this zero trust space?
I would say start with an assessment, understand your maturity levels, and then carve out your strategic roadmap. If you're already in the journey, definitely look at your current implementations, where you stand. As I mentioned, This is not something that you set it and leave it. In today's world with the AI advancement, there is a change in the overall attack vectors. So the traditional attack vectors no longer apply, right? So in a AI based world, how things have changed for you, assess that, understand it, and follow the frameworks, assess it against the industry frameworks, and see how effectively you can deploy components of zero trust within your organization and better this on a day-to-day basis. Always look at continuous monitoring, because that's something that is necessary, because you cannot protect something that you cannot see. So you need to have that visibility factor always available as and when you are transforming, and implement it. Bake the security components as part of everything that you do within an organization, not look at it as a standalone service. Bring it in everything, or else you will have gaps, and all of these blind spots are the ones that are being addressed by attackers. And in today's world, attackers have more leverage with AI. So how do you counter that? So those are some of the avenues I would recommend municipalities start looking at as and when you advance or transform your ecosystem.
Great. Thank you, Subin. So before we wrap up, any final words or challenges you think municipalities will face when implementing zero trust?
100%. The biggest challenge, as I mentioned earlier, is the shortage in the cyber skill sets that has always been there, and the world. This is not only a Canadian problem; it's across the globe. So that is where they can leverage MSSPs and take assistance from organization like CGI, where we are here to help you guys in. Funding, definitely. You need to build an effective business case to gather the right set of funding. So that's another challenge. And how do you address the legacy problem? The legacy ecosystem that you hold, how do you move away from the vulnerabilities, and what that brings to your organization? So those are some of the challenges, and definitely you can engage us to bring in best practices, industry best practices, knowledge, how we are helping other customers across Canada.
Excellent. Now, there you have it, folks. We have dug through zero trust. In brief, if we have to summarize, never trust, always verify, assume breach, and verify everything. Thank you so much, Subin, for your perspective and your knowledge. We will open up for any audience questions shortly. Do we have any questions from audience? So, Subin, in the chat, I think
I see
you have questions.
application control fit. There's a question from Navsangeet Gill. Where does application control fit compared to other tech in a zero trust model like Microsoft AppLock, AirLock Digital? So application control is one of the key pillars of the zero trust model. So you definitely have to look at applications in today's world, how your applications are being used, the privileges that are available for the applications, the activity that can be done, also the vulnerabilities that are present in those applications. So all of that falls under the application and workload pillar of zero trust. So it's one of the key pillars, and it is important that you address it. Without addressing it, that means that there's going to be a gap within the organization. So along with identity, application, data, network, these are all pillars of zero trust. So it's very important that we address it. Airlock, these are all technology stacks that definitely help you uh, address it from a zero trust perspective. So the technology stack can be definitely leveraged to protect your applications.
I think there is a very interesting question next, Subin, about
Okay.
municipal
municipal leaders best justify the investment in a zero trust strategy to taxpayers, especially when budgets are tight? When you are in a ransomware kind of a situation, you end up in spending quite a bit of dollars recovering your reputation loss, and also at the same time information disclosure and information coming out of municipalities which are falling in the wrong hands, right? So it's important that you present your business case in such a manner that zero trust will definitely allow you to secure your citizens, secure your information, and not spend millions of dollars after an attack. You can thwart all of those in advance while you have the right set of strategies in place. So building a proper business case is important to get the zero trust strategy approved and implemented, rather than spending millions of dollars after a breach. And that is something that we've seen in the last few years happen as well. What are the most practical first steps to begin adopting a zero trust model without a major disruption? Also, will this offering vary based on the size of each municipality? So, the bare minimal first step, as I mentioned, is start with a baseline assessment, understanding how you're implementing, if you are already on the journey. If not, start looking at doing this baseline assessment to understand how you can start your journey. And the next step would be, if you have not started your zero trust implementation, what are the areas that you can low hanging fruits or quick wins that you can adopt to start your journey for the next 24 to 36 months. So always start with a baseline assessment as a initial strategy without causing major disruption, and then look at the quick wins that you can adopt. Start leveraging your existing investments, not going with extraordinary investments that you can need to start on with. Articulate your program in such a way that you start leveraging what you have already invested. And many customers have that blind spot where they don't know what they've invested already. So that is where the assessment will help. A municipal councillor might frame it this way: how does adopting a zero trust cybersecurity model help municipalities meet and demonstrate compliance with public sector regulation standards and audit requirements, particularly in areas like data protection, access control, and risk management? 100%. It's not only regulation; it's also audit related importance that zero trust brings in. So adopting a zero trust cybersecurity model will help them if they are under an audit, if they need to meet the municipal regulations. Definitely, all of this will help them because, as I mentioned, there are 5 different pillars, and there are baseline fundamentals that you need to adhere to while you're implementing a zero trust model. So starting at the identity layer, the application, the device layer, workloads, and network. So if you start protecting all of these uh, uh, pillars, over and above this, you have cybersecurity governance, orchestration, automation, and visibility also as the foundation layers of the CISA zero trust maturity model. So once you start addressing these pillars, you automatically comply against your regulations, and at the same time, auditability also becomes easier for you. Nav Sangeet has another question around, basically, if you can map the amount of losses, tangible and non-tangible, in case there is a breach, then it would be very easy to justify the budget. 100% yes. The most important loss is the information disclosure or exfiltration of data, intellectual property. These are kind of information that gets lost, and those are significant loss for an organization. From a municipality perspective, that is very much related to the reputation in itself, right? So if you're talking about a technology vendor, product vendor, or an IT ecosystem, there are blueprints, intellectual property that are lost, that can cost them millions of dollars of work to regain all of those back, right? So that is one of the key criteria. And the other aspects that municipalities can definitely bring in is the amount of time that is required to restore operations back, right? The confidence of the citizens of the municipalities, because the information is not available, the business operations is disrupted. So manually, manual intervention required when systems are down. So those are the kind of uh, information that you need to bring in place when you want to get your budgets approved, basically. Yeah. So these are the kind of delays that you, and I know, without taking any names, there are municipalities which have taken 6 months to restore their operations back after a ransomware attack. So that's the kind of info that you need to keep in mind and be ready to present back to the board to get budgets approved. Any other questions?
Okay. So we see no no further questions. Um, any last words, Subin, before we wrap up?
The most important thing in today's world, with adoption of AI, the attack vectors are changing. The model security is becoming much more important. So let's focus more and more. The zero trust itself is undergoing a change. So my request to all of you is start assessing your environments and start planning towards before implementing newer strategies. Let's assess where you stand and then carve out your strategy before you implement them.
Thank you so much. And to the audience, thank you for your gracious presence. Subin and I both are on LinkedIn. You can reach out to us anytime to further discuss. This was CGI's first webinar. We are hoping throughout the year we bring in more interesting topics in cybersecurity and other spaces to this audience and continue this journey of discussion.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone. Thank you.